All right, I think it's pretty obvious that the United States and Russia, NATO and Russia are headed towards a collision. And I think if Trump sends those Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, it might be the point of no return, the point where there's not enough political will or strength on either side to guide us away from a war. And at this point, Russia and the United States, they're not complying with treaties that have been established many years ago. Recently, Russia pulled out of the plutonium treaty, where both the United States and Russia are supposed to dispose of 34 tons of plutonium nuclear material. And Russia officially pulled out of that earlier this month. We now have a situation where there's a leader in the Russian Duma, there's a Congress, where this guy's basically talking about nuclear war with the United States. And of course, Trump is talking about he might send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. This is this thing where he says he might do something. He's kind of think about it when he's definitely going to do it. So if he does that, it's going to be very difficult for both sides to really back off, because we're seeing escalation after escalation. What's probably going to happen is he's going to sell these Tomahawk missiles to NATO countries, and NATO countries are going to give it to Ukraine. Now, these Tomahawk missiles have a much greater range than the ATACMS missiles. The ATACMS missiles only had a range of 200, 300 miles. These Tomahawk missiles have a range of 1,550 miles. They can also be used with nuclear warheads. In fact, it makes more sense to use them with nuclear warheads, because their warheads, their conventional warheads, aren't even that powerful compared to some of the stuff that's already available, especially in Russia. So the Russians are going to be in a situation where they're going to have security concerns. If they see these Tomahawk missiles coming towards their country, they got to wonder, hey, is this nuclear or not? Now, I know that the Russians have a pretty good air defense system. They should be able to handle most of this stuff, but still, there's a risk. There's a practical part of this, which is that you don't know if the Americans might try to use Ukraine in a first strike, give them some nuclear warheads, and use those Tomahawks to hit your capital. And at that range from Ukraine, they'll be able to hit anywhere in Russia and within Russian Europe, the part of Russia that's in Europe. So I don't know how concerned the Russians are about this, but it's definitely a concern for me. And then there's the political implications of this as well. There's got to be some people in Russia wondering, at what point is Putin gonna provide some consequences for the West? Because NATO keeps crossing his red lines. They keep crossing red line after red line, and it's got to have some type of psychological effect. I know it's definitely affecting NATO. These so-called NATO leaders, a lot of them are thinking, hey, he didn't do anything last time or the time before then, so he's just bluffing. He's never gonna really do anything. And that's dangerous, because too many NATO leaders probably had the impression that Putin isn't gonna do anything. They might think that Russia might not have a nuclear deterrence. And it's obvious that they have nuclear weapons. It's obvious that they have a delivery system for the nuclear weapons. They have a way of communicating orders as well. But there may be a debate as to whether Russia has that fourth component, and that's the will to actually use nuclear weapons. I don't want to see a nuclear war, obviously. I don't want to see a nuclear detonation, obviously. But the problem is, once NATO is convinced that Putin isn't going to do anything, then they might be more likely to push the envelope more than they would if they thought, hey, this guy probably would do something, probably would use nuclear weapons against them. I mean, it's a crazy conversation, but it's something we got to think about. And recently, Pete Hegseth, he went overseas. He went to Europe, and he spoke to some of their leaders, some NATO leaders, and he told them that he's going to make sure that, well, if Russia doesn't come to the table and negotiate peace, there's going to be some consequences. He's going to make sure Russia pays a cost. It's going to be a cost. That's what he's talking about. So you have this escalation, you have this reckless talk, this reckless rhetoric on both sides. And I wonder if this Tomahawk situation is going to be the point of no return. Where is Putin's real red line? Does he even have a real red line? I don't want to see either side cross the other side's red line, because if that happens, it means it's nuclear war. All right, share your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget the future belongs to those who prepare for today. Oh, another thing going on, the Voting Rights Act. The U.S. Supreme Court's looking at that. Basically, a lot of these southern states, these states have been ordered to construct their congressional districts in a manner that makes it easier for black representatives to get into Congress. And a lot of people argue that if black people represent 40% of a state, like Louisiana, for example, if that's true, or Alabama or so, 40% of the representatives should be black. I mean, you can make the same argument about California. You can say that 40% of the voters are Republican, and shouldn't 40% of the representatives be Republican if the voter? But it doesn't really happen that way. And a lot of blue states, they sort of craft these congressional lines and districts in a way that really benefits the Democratic Party. Well, you're seeing Republicans starting to do the same thing. There's talk about Indiana. There's talk about a number of red states doing that same thing. And if the Supreme Court of the United States of America decides to get rid of this racial requirement and as part of the Voting Rights Act, you're going to see Republicans automatically gain. If there's redistricting, they recraft the lines. You're going to see Republicans gain about 18 to 20 seats, and Democrats lose about 18 to 20 seats. You could see Democrats become a minority party for at least a decade. So this has huge implications. We'll see what happens. So far, Clarence Thomas seems to be on the side of getting rid of this requirement in the Voting Rights Act. And you have Supreme Court Jackson. She's a black female who's definitely pushing in favor of it. My thing is, what if this racial element is used in the other direction? So I think it's going to be overturned. I think it's going to be overturned, and I think the Democratic Party is going to have some serious issues. They've been taking a lot of L's lately, but it might not matter, because we may all end up taking an L if Russia and the United States go to war.